I'm Dr. Salas. The World Health Organization advises a maximum of 5 grams of salt per day. The emphasis is on avoiding salty foods to decrease blood pressure and improve cardiovascular health. So, is it always preferable to just cut back on salt? This time, we'll look at salt moderation through the lens of historical context and national salt policies. I'm going to take the form of an argument. The blue team believes, oh, let's eat it moderately salty, whereas the red team believes salt intake should be kept to a minimum. Now the fight begins. Our forebears were unable to add salt to their diet because they had no idea how to acquire it. So, the daily salt intake was zero point 0.5 gram. It is comparable to 1/20th of the present amount. Did you ever notice that our ancestors have cardiovascular disease? And do you know the Yanomamo Indians that live in Brazil? After all, the daily sodium intake is less than zero point 0.5 grams. They do not have high blood pressure. Therefore, eating less salt helps to lower your blood pressure. Our predecessors most likely ate too little salt and perished early before developing cardiovascular disease. Yanomamo Indians have a life expectancy of less than 40 years. Simply lowering your blood pressure does not imply that you are doing well. Perhaps a severe deficiency of salt will lead them to die early. Well, it's rare for modern society to consume too little salt, so let's move on. Humans' intake of salt has increased dramatically over the last 50 years when they discovered that it prevents food spoilage. According to a global survey conducted in 2017, 3 million individuals die each year as a result of excessive salt consumption. When examining how food influences your health, you cannot simply look at one ingredient. The rise in salt intake is not the result of simply eating salt. This is because people are eating more processed foods and eating out more frequently. Do you know how many countries around the world follow the World Health Organization's recommendations? There isn't one. There's none. The average intake is 10 grams, which is precisely double the recommended amount. But is the average life expectancy decreasing? No, it is rising. Consider Japan, which has the longest lifespan. They eat a lot of soy sauce and pickled veggies, in which contain salt, but they live an average of 84 years. South India consumes half the amount of salt as the North, although its average blood pressure is 141 and 88 mmHg. But hey, why are you only talking about Asia? I present two examples of European countries where rolling salt intake reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease: Finland and England. Finland lowered its salt intake from 14 grams per day in 1972 to 9 grams in 2002, 30 years later, through education and product labeling. As a result, blood pressure was dropped by 10 mmHg, lowering the risk of cardiovascular death by 80%. The situation was the same in England. So do you believe the United Kingdom and Finland have necessarily lowered their salt consumption? Why did we forget that the anti-smoking movement led an increase in the number of people who quit? Consider the instance of China. Although salt intake was reduced by 2 grams between 1991 and 2009, the incidence of cardiovascular disease remained the same. Although overall salt intake has reduced, processed food consumption has increased by 3.5 times, from 2% to 7%. Is this natural or processed salt? This is an extremely significant question. This can be attributed to a decrease in salt in processed foods rather than natural salt in foods in the UK and Finland. No, but the more salt you eat, the higher your blood pressure will be. But just a moment. Does reducing your salt intake lessen your cardiovascular risk, whether you have a high or normal blood pressure? No. Furthermore, the link between salt intake and higher blood pressure was discovered only in persons who ingested a lot of salt, more than 12.5 grams per day. As a result, you should only cut your salt intake if you consume an excessive amount. Well, the blue team wins. According to a survey of 100,000 others worldwide, the recommended salt intake was between 10 and 15 grams per day. When it comes to health, we can say this range the moderation. Let's look at the possibility of dying prematurely. It rises by 15% if you eat more than 17.5 grams per day and 27% if you eat less than 7.5 grams per day. People who ate too little salt died sooner. As I have stated, salt in processed foods is worse. For example, 100 grams of raw potatoes have 4 milligrams of sodium. However, 100 grams of potato chips contains 220 milligrams or 54 times greater. Tomatoes contain 3 milligrams, while ketchup has 430 times more. One slice of frozen pizza has 5 grams of salt. The use of artificial salt in our processed food civilization is an issue. Veggies and kimchi seasoned with salt. Shouldn't we eat them? Yes. In fact, either benefit your body. Let me conclude with two assumptions. First, the story of becoming healthier by lowering salt is about reducing hazardous foods that contain salt. Second, when people consume less salt, they die earlier because they are consuming less of the important salt. It means that the natural salt. In the next episode, we will learn about the moderation of salty taste by looking at how salt affects our bodies. If you found this useful, please subscribe and like. Moderate salt intake is important for good health. Salud!